What's up, Breakaway? Welcome back to another Sunday message on YouTube. Hopefully the lighting's all right. The sun's setting behind me. It's my favorite time to be outside, so I'm filming right now. Hopefully it'll be all right. But hey, welcome back. We got a great message for you guys today. Also, some huge news, all right? I'm sending an email and a text out to your parents this week. But if you're watching this video, you might be the first to know that this Thursday, we're doing an outdoor movie night. All right, yes, you heard that right. We are actually gonna be meeting for the first time in person since March. All right, we're doing an outdoor movie night, and I will give you guys the address and the information later this week, but it's gonna be Thursday night. All right, with that, we got a new series we're starting today. It's called Worth Repeating, and we're gonna be looking at stories that Jesus told in the Bible that are worth repeating, things that we should still be talking about today, stories that we should be repeating. So hopefully you guys enjoy. As we jump into week one, let's get started. All right, as we get started today, I'm curious to know from you guys, do you guys have a story or that your parents always told you growing up, or maybe your grandparents always told you growing up, that almost had a lesson behind it? Like, maybe it's the green monster that comes out underneath your bed if you don't eat your vegetables at dinner, right? Like, that story was drilled into somebody, and they always thought there was a green monster underneath their bed unless they ate their vegetables at dinner, right? So they told that story, but it was really just a lesson to get the kids to eat their vegetables, right? We've seen these stories before. Now, stories like that, they make lessons easier to learn, right? That's why parents tell that story to get their kids to eat their vegetables, because that's easier than just telling them, hey, go eat your vegetables. They stick with us. And that's why Jesus also used stories a ton in the Bible. The stories Jesus told are called parables, and they're called that basically because they're short stories that has a mini spiritual lesson or some kind of learning moment from it. So for the next few weeks, we're going to dive into a few of these parables Jesus told, and we're going to see what lessons Jesus has for us today, as well as the message that he gave to those that he spoke it to 2,000 years ago. To start, we're going to look at a story that Jesus told that's recorded in the book of Luke. And we'll start it off by seeing the audience that Jesus was speaking to. So Luke 15:1 gives us the context of who he's speaking to. It says, tax collectors and other notorious sinners often came to listen to Jesus teach. In other words, bad people like to be around Jesus a lot. And we can clearly see here that there's a difference between who the sinners were and who the religious people were. And it's clear that the religious people didn't love the sinners being around Jesus that much. We'll see more as we go on. As we continue, it says, this made the Pharisees and teachers of religious law complain that he was associating with such sinful people, even eating with them. Now, I'm not sure how you guys view yourself, if you view yourself maybe as the religious person or maybe as the sinner. I'm not sure, but I think we can all see somebody in our life that has played one of these two roles. Regardless if you view yourself as the religious person or as the sinner, there's still a big problem here. We feel like in order to be with God, we have to act or behave in a certain way. It's a tension that has been around forever, especially since Jesus has been here, and Jesus actually addresses it with one of his stories, one of his parables that he tells in the Gospels. So let's jump into that story. So the story is about a man and his two sons. You might have heard it before, but we're going to dive really deep into it. So let's start reading in verse 11. It says, there was a man who had two sons. The younger one said to his father, Father, give me the share of the estate. So he divided the property between them. Basically, his son told his father, hey, Dad, eventually when you pass away, I'm going to get a portion of your stuff. Will you give that to me now instead of when you die later? And the dad was like, sure, here. It continues, not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. He's like the dude that wins the lottery, wins millions and millions of dollars, and then 3 years later, you hear a news story that he's broke because he spent it all on Red Bull, Mountain Dew, licorice, and a Lamborghini. He makes a bunch of bad decisions and then has nothing to show for anything that he had. We keep reading. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. We see the son got so desperate he wanted to eat the food that he was feeding to the pigs. I'm sure pig feed was not nearly as good as what he had when he was living with his parents, but that's what he's gotten himself into. Thankfully, the story doesn't end there. We continue. When he, the younger son, came to his senses, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father." Basically, he's saying, my father's servants lived better than I'm living right now. So what if I just go on home, go back to dad, and I can be one of his servants? He knew he wasn't going to go back to the same status that he was before as one of his sons, but he said, you know what? I can go back as a servant. At least I'll have a good meal and a bed to sleep on. That's enough for me. Well, if you know the story, that's not what happened next. So let's see what happens. Jesus told the story this way. But while he, the younger son, was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. So in the story, before the son could even say a word, the father ran out to him, gave him a hug, gave him an old smooch, hopefully on the forehead or cheek. Why did I even say that? But the son had a speech prepared. Let's see what the son said. "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son." But the father said to his servants, "Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." So they began to celebrate. Now the son came back expecting to be treated like a servant, but the father said, "None of that. You are my son. Welcome home. Let's throw a party." Now's a good time to think back to the audience members that Jesus was speaking to. He had the sinners who may have viewed themselves as this son who came back home, but they were also the religious leaders in town. And for the religious leaders, maybe this didn't sound so great. Maybe they thought, isn't the father setting a bad example for his son? That kid's never going to learn his lesson. But Jesus wasn't done with the story yet. He addressed the role of what the religious leaders might view themselves as. It's about the older brother. Let's check it out. The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, "Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him." "My son," the father said, "you are always with me, and everything I have is yours." But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So the father enjoyed the party. We know the younger brother enjoyed the party, but we don't know what the older brother did. Did he go and enjoy the party after that? Did he keep his distance? Did he shun his brother? Was he continually mad at his father? We're not really sure. But talking about the older brother was really helpful for the religious people in the crowd. The audience thought they were getting a story where the younger son was punished for his choices and the older son was rewarded for his faithfulness and servanthood to his father. But they got the complete opposite of that. They got a whole new story. And it probably stuck with them because of how much it was different than what they thought. Instead, they got a younger brother who didn't fix anything in his life before going back home and got a party thrown for him, and an older brother who was bitter and angry about the whole situation, and his father told him that he had a wrong heart posture toward it. In this parable, Jesus has a really, really important lesson for all of us. And it's you don't have to be fixed to be found. You don't have to be living a certain way or acting accordingly to be found by Jesus, to be loved by Jesus, to be welcomed into the family with a big hug and a kiss. The religious leaders might have been frustrated and angry at Jesus because of this, but Jesus was telling them a really important thing. He was saying, you don't get to decide how fixed somebody is before they can be found by my love. And this story still has so much meaning today. For the people who think they're too far from God or they've sinned too much, they've messed up too much, Jesus says you are never too far to be found. And to the religious people, the one who look down upon sinners, the one who shuns other people for their mistakes, he says don't ever give up on someone. They can always be found. No one loses their value just because they've lost their way. No matter where you are or what you've done, you are worth finding. And Jesus isn't waiting for you to fix your life before you run to him. He just wants you to come back home. So the question for you to think for today is, which brother are you? Are you the little brother who needs to run back to Jesus? Or are you the older brother who looks down upon other people, maybe for their mistakes or their sins, and you need to be more gracious and loving to others? If you're one of the older brothers, think of a couple people in your life that you have looked down upon or have looked at as sinners, and start praying for them. Start hanging out with them. Start inviting them into things. You can show God's love to them. And for those who believe they're the younger brother, know that Jesus is waiting for you to come home. He's ready to embrace you, so take a step toward him. Take a step. Say a prayer to God. Talk to a friend. Talk to a small group leader. Talk to me if you need. But take a step toward God. And remember, for today, you do not have to be fixed to be found. You might still be a hot mess right now. Sometimes I am. I know plenty of Christians who are. But Jesus still loves us. You can go to God just as you are, and you can help others realize that they can go to God just as they are. So let's do that today. All right, Breakaway, thanks so much for joining again for our week 1 of Worth Repeating. All right, remember that this Thursday we're doing a movie night. Let your friends know. We can have a max, I think, of 35 people. So I don't think we're going to get over 35, but hopefully we can get close to that, because I'd love to see as many of you guys as possible. We're going to wear masks. We're going to socially distance to be safe, but it's outdoors. We have an awesome setup waiting for us. 8 o'clock on Thursday. I'll let you guys know the address very soon. Hopefully I'll see you all there. Have a great week. Peace out.